Hey everyone, welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today I have the director of the Crusades, Leo Milano, on. So first off, thanks for doing this. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into filmmaking?
Mike, very glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been, it's a weird journey. What I've discovered from this entire career is that every single person has a different journey, so it's always interesting to hear it. But you know, I my parents gave me a little video camera, like it was called a flip camera, standard definition in like
Yeah.
2008, I think. For Christmas, I didn't ask for it. I think they were like desperate for gifts that year, and they gave me that. Didn't touch it for 6 months, and then one day I picked it up and I started doing just random videos with my friends on the weekends, and then it led to me really loving it. Joining drama, going to film school, dropping out of film school, working on set as a stand-in and as a PA, and then eventually moving towards directing and now fortunate enough to have my first feature film coming out. So it's been a wild ride, but yeah, I picked up a camera in 2008.
So I gotta ask, what turned you on to this film, and did it come from personal experience? Was your high school the same way it was in the movie?
It's it yeah, yes and no. A lot of this is in the characters. I think within a lot of the characters, it's based on like maybe me and the writers how we felt in high school. And as far as the plot line goes, a lot of it's stories and folklore that you hear while you're in high school. Some true, maybe extremely exaggerated. But yeah, I went to an all boys private high school, and it's definitely a different beast than I think most schools. And I think when you meet people that go to the same, go to same sex schools, you instantly click with them because it's a journey those 4 years. It's definitely different than a co-ed school, and so yeah, it's very different. And I felt that it hadn't been explored too much in Hollywood, so I felt inclined to tell the story.
Yeah, because I think from when I was reading in your bio, like you said, you would like talk about your high school experience to other people when you were in college, and they were kind of looking at you like dumbstruck, like, what?
So listen, picture like 800 guys, and
Yeah.
trapped in a building for 4 years. And a lot of these private schools don't necessarily like. I think when a lot of people think private, they think it's like really wealthy and really preppy. It's not. These are schools that are a lot of times privately funded schools, and they don't necessarily have a lot of like the amenities that are up to date. So like picture 400, 800 dudes trapped in a school all in their young, 14 to 18, at the peak of their testosterone and their hormones. And really, their only like interaction with like girls or outside schools is the weekend. So, like, Monday to Friday, it's just a wild experience. And like, I would cry every single day of high school laughing because something absurd happened. So when I got to college, I started telling people, "Hey, where are you from? This is, oh, when I was in high school, this happened." And I thought nothing of it at the time.
Yeah.
But when I started meeting new people from all walks of life, I'm like, where did you go to school? And no, I loved my school. I was, my
Yeah.
favorite 4 years ever. I had a great experience. I would send my kids there. But it's just different. It's a different animal. All boys, man.
Yeah.
All girls schools too. I got so many friends who went to all girls schools. It's the same. They have their own. It's this interesting community.
Yeah, I remember I used to date someone from an old girl school, and it was like they were like surprised to see boys at dances, and I'm like, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's totally a thing. I think even now too, like the our sister school now has got down to like maybe like I don't know what it is, maybe like 60 girls in a grade. So like our school is even having a hard time doing a dance with them because like it's just over like the numbers are quadruple them. So it's just like awkward, and even if it wasn't awkward enough to begin with, now it's probably even twice as awkward for these kids. So it's special. It's definitely special.
So, although this movie is comedic in nature, it isn't really shot like a comedy. It almost sometimes it looks a little bit like a thriller. How did you go about establishing the look for the film?
Yeah, so that was my intention going into it. So me and my cinematographer Dylan Schneider, we like sat down. We're like, "What do you want this to look like?" And I'm like, "I think this needs to be shot as a drama." And I'm like, to me, when I was in high school, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is like everything felt like the end of the world. Everything was over the top dramatic. So I wanted to shoot it like a drama from the mind of a high school student, and then let the comedy come out by how they react to it. It's not necessarily like a bunch of like jokes, and we're not in your face with like line after line after line of just like comedy. But I want it to be like, life is dramatic, and the fact that most high school kids overreact to their drama, that's funny in its own sense. So that's how I wanted to shoot this film. And I think it was a little unorthodox, but that's how when I look back at high school, it was over dramatic and it was funny how things panned out. So
there was one sequence that really stood out where the cops are busting a party, and then there's this like long single take following all the craziness of what's going on in that scene. It kind of reminded me, I don't know if you've ever seen True Detective, but it reminded me of that shot in True Detective where they're dragging Matthew McConaughey out.
That's the inspiration for the shot.
Oh, really?
Nailed it to the T. You made my day just now by saying that. Yeah, to the T. So that's one of my all-time favorite TV shows is season 1 of True Detective.
Yeah. And
that episode is hands down, like, that inspired me so much. And that was one of those shots in the shooting schedule where, like, guys, we're a small movie. We don't have a lot of time to rehearse this. And that was like day one on the Tech Scout. Like, we spent so much time just talking like, what's realistic here? But all I know is I want this to be a oneer. It was always wrote as a oneer, and it was 100% inspired by that True Detective episode. So that's I'm so glad you caught that. It was probably the most ambitious thing we did in the entire film, given our shooting schedule. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really proud of that shot. So I'm glad you caught it.
Yeah. How long did it take you guys to pull that off? Because that certainly didn't look like it was an easy feat.
1 second, hold on 1 second. Technical difficulty on my end. 1 second. Just came through another speaker. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just went through a speaker in my living room somehow.
No
All right.
worries.
Let me say that. Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Oh no. So it didn't look like it was an easy shot to pull off. Like, what was the work that kind of like went into doing that?
So again, we're a super indie film, and for me, this was a big, like, we shot this in Chicago, the scene, and whatchamacallit, it was like we had to shut down 4 city blocks. We had like probably 7 squad cars out there, and I don't know, probably 100 people total with like extras and all that stuff. So it was a night exterior. It's like we're going against everything they tell you in film school when you're shooting an indie film, which is like shoot it in daylight. I try to avoid as much lighting. So we had like condors and light like shafts from 2 blocks away coming through this. We really swung for the fence on this specific shot. And I remember we only had the first half of the day to shoot it because we had all stunts the rest of the night. And my producer turned to me, like, we were doing it for like, we already did like 6 or 7 takes. He's just like, dude, this has to be the last take. And I'm like, if we get it.
Yeah, exactly.
If we get it, because the shot only works if we pull it off. So luckily we got it. And I think it took like maybe 8 takes and we got it. But really proud of that one. Sometimes you just got to go for it. You don't know if you never know if you're going to get a second film. So I'm like, let's just try to do as big as we can. So that was definitely my most excited shot we did.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an exciting film just from the opening scene when they're getting into like the middle of a street fight and then they're getting broken up. What inspired you to start that movie with such a bombastic scene?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, because like in high school, a big thing was like these park fights. And it was like the weekend thing. I didn't necessarily go to them, but every Monday it was like, okay, like what happened at the park this weekend? And that was just basically kind of like a normal thing on the weekend. So we wanted to open it up with it. I think we really wanted to start quick and, pull the audience in, make it over the top just from Jump Street, because then it slows down for about a half hour. The second that second half starts, it's nonstop. But, I wanted the first 10 minutes to be a little chaotic, and then we'll ease into it a bit. But, yeah, it's probably a little too chaotic. But, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a good way to open the movie. It was really fun.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I wanted it chaotic like that.
All right, good. Yeah, it's fun. It's in a weird way realistic, too. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but that's just, I don't know. It's what kids do, I guess.
Oh yeah, like the parties that get broken up in high school and all that. That's just, I mean, there's a reason that's been in movies for so many years is because that's something that happens to everybody, I think,
For
or a
sure.
lot of people in high school.
And like it's so funny because like that's the park that like so much drama happened in high school that like my parents were like, don't go to that park, don't go to that park, and we actually got to film it in that actual park. So that was a fun full circle moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, when you were in high school, would you say you were like a tame kid, or were you kind of like a wild child, or somewhere in between?
I was pretty tame. I was a pretty good kid. I was a pretty good kid. I was always too scared to get in trouble. You know, I didn't want to disappoint my parents in any way, so I was always like very by the book. But the Jack character, not so much. You know, our co-writer Jack, like if you notice, the characters are Sean, Jack, and Leo. The writers are Sean, Jack, and Leo.
Right.
And this was a decade ago we started writing this thing, and for it to come, actually happen, I don't know if we knew it was actually going to become a film when we were writing this thing forever ago, but Jack, on the other hand, definitely was, a handful to be a student and a child. So that's definitely very true to character. But no, Leo Milano was a pretty good kid.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, were your teachers as openly crass as they were in this film? Because, like, at one point, the gym teacher was talking to another guy. He's like, those girls there, you gotta bang them. I'm like, I don't think I had someone like that, but I could believe having someone like that. And of course, Mr. Marshall, he's just like someone who just doesn't give a fuck at that point.
Yeah, I think all I'll say is like I think different times, right? When I was in high school, it was a little different times. I graduated in 2010, but like it was still a world. Even like this, the movies they were putting out back then, they don't really get made now. Like comedy and things of that nature were definitely very different. Again, all boys school, so it's a lot more harsher. But keep in mind, like a lot of like teachers are underpaid at these schools because it's such low funding that like, yeah, man, these kids are misbehaving all day. And after probably like your first or second year at this school, it's just like, I don't care. Like, you're on my clock. And like, if you're misbehaving, like, I want to put you in check, which I respect. And I think it's very good for development for the young kids. I think, a little harshness is not necessarily a bad thing every now and then.
Yeah.
But yeah, good people. I loved my teachers.
Aside from Leo, which character did you relate to the most?
I think Sean, the character Sean played by Khalil Everidge, is relatable. Just in the fact that he has to balance like relationships and popularity and friends. In high school, you don't really understand all that, and you've never done it before, so it's like really hard to like understand like how you're really supposed to allocate your time and what actually matters. Maybe instead of like doing things for the wrong reason just because you're supposed to. And I think a lot of people can relate to that at any scale. I think it's just really navigating high school is hard, and I think he had it probably the most realistic and the most difficult in the film.
Yeah. So, like in your high school, did the jocks mix with like the nerds, or is that just something made for the movie?
There wasn't like being 200 kids in your class. Like there really isn't a popular kid. So,
yeah.
It's like everyone's really, and it's funny because like there would be times where you would see two kids getting into it, whether he's like a band kid and like someone who's a wrestler.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. Like, everyone was truthfully on the same playing field, in my opinion. Which really I think it was a benefit because there was no hierarchy and everyone, it's different. You don't have anyone to impress. There's no one to impress when there's no girls. You take out any sort of love interest in your school and these, half these kids aren't showering even because they don't have anyone to like call them out on it. So, I think that's some of the benefits of like, going to high school like that. It's just like, you can just focus on trying to learn. And really no distractions.
And how did you go about establishing a personality for like each of these kids between, Sean and Leo, yourself? And
yeah, it's hard. Writing's hard. Writing's really hard, and I think there's a reason it's taken this many years to get this project made. To make things sound believable and like different, and have everyone be their own person on paper is so hard. Luckily, when it comes to casting, You get some really talented people that will take your character and just run with it. I think our cast fully did that. They really made the characters their own. I had such a vision of how it should be, and then they took it and just brought it to the next level, and I really can't picture it any other way. So, I definitely will say the cast is definitely a lot to contribute to making it their own.
And who was your favorite person on the faculty in that movie? Because that was an interesting faculty.
Yeah, the teachers are a trip in this movie. They're, I got a sweet spot. I mean, Coach Krieger's the best. Nick Turturro is amazing. He's so funny. I think he has some of the best laughs in the whole movie. But I love Mr. Marshall. I think the history teacher, the few times you see him in the movie, like you could like this dude just hates his life. You could tell, and like he's like definitely past his prime and probably peaked in high school. But I think. I don't know. I just get a kick out of all of his scenes for some reason. He's Pete Seaworth's the actor. I've known Pete forever. It's so funny. He used to be my roommate back in like 2014 when me, Sean, and Jack were writing this, and we always joke he would come in and just derail our meetings. So we had this long going love-hate with Pete, and I was so happy when we casted him for this. But yeah, he's one of my favorite faculty members for sure.
Yeah. I noticed in the movie that the parents aren't missing. It's a little bit like Brick, where it was it's really more about the students and it's centered on them instead of kind of getting lost and all that other stuff. What made you decide to sort of lead them out of the story?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's something that we never even thought of when we were writing it. And now looking back, people have been saying that. They're like, there's no parents in this. But I really believe in the root of this all. We wanted to just make it about the boys, right? And I don't know. I always felt like the school was a character. I thought the activities that happen on the street and at the parties is way more interesting than their home life. Also, yeah, I don't know. Parents in movies always annoy me. I feel like you can never do a good job writing them. They're always the worst parents ever. So I wanted to stay away from them. And I think we see their home life one time, and it's in the montage where they're getting ready for the dance. And it's just enough to get a little bit of taste. These kids clearly have very different households. And I think that says all you need to know about their family life in just their little montages to see how their bedrooms are displayed.
Wow. And how was the casting process of the film? How did you find all the right actors for the right roles?
This was, I don't know. This was a very unorthodox casting. We've did it all grassroots. I mean, it was literally Leo Milano emailing these massive agents being you just don't often see the director reaching out directly to people. We couldn't afford a casting director, and we had a lot of help. We had a really great package we put together, a sizzle that we shot back in 2018. And, we brought on the Turturro family came in. They were involved in that project as well. And they were able to help us really sit down and be okay, who do we know? Do we have friends of friends that know people? And that was a big avenue of it. Chicago had some great local talent that we casted. And, but honestly, the script did all the heavy lifting. Once these people actually opened the script, which is also one of the hardest parts of the entire casting, is just getting someone to even open your email. Once people opened the script, it was very well received, and luck at the end of the day, that's the only thing that mattered. Because even if you're best friends with an A-lister, they're not going to necessarily do your project if they don't like it. So the script.
Yeah. Now you guys shot during the pandemic. What was that like?
We ran a COVID testing facility. This was insane. It's so frustrating, but we had to stay safe. We had to stay healthy. It was our only option was to do all this. We had I don't know what it was, some crazy number of total testing we had to do. We had to test almost every single day. Luckily, we didn't have a single negative or a single positive case. We had 800, 900 some tests. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was really, really tough. It was really challenging. Everyone had to wear masks. Even outside, we had to wear masks, which was really hard to just direct and talk with the cast. And but I was in the same boat as everyone else in Hollywood, so we got through it. I was just grateful to be able to make the film because it got worse even, I think, even after we filmed it, like, oh, COVID's over. And then like it dipped back down and became even more strict on set. We hit like a real sweet spot in the schedule of the year. We got really lucky. We had everything stacked against us for this film. COVID was a big one because if I tested positive, I was done. Like, I don't know what we would have done. I don't know if we had no insurance policy as far as like additional days going for COVID. So if any of our actors or myself got it, I truthfully don't know what we would have done. And I'm just counting my lucky stars, man.
Yeah, thank God it all worked out.
Yeah.
Aside from the long, like, single take sequence, what was like the hardest sequence for you to shoot?
I think man, oh man. I remember like there's a scene towards the end of the movie. I can't really talk about it because it's climax, but like
Right.
It was early in the shoot, and it was with Rudy, who plays Leo, and it's like it was early in our shooting schedule, so it was one of the heavier scenes of the movie, and it's really hard to get into it when like you're still jiving. That was the first time when we got through that scene. I'm like, okay, we're making a real movie now. Everything else was pretty easy up to that point. That was a good one. But I think the hardest scene we had to shoot was there's this bleacher scene towards the end of the movie. It takes place at sunrise. So we had 45 minutes to do it. It's like an 8-page scene. And, I was so proud of the cast after that day because that was a really tough one. We only had one shot of doing it, and, to nail 8 pages in 45 minutes. And it's like the most heartfelt part of the whole movie. It's one of my favorite scenes, I think, because it was the hardest to shoot. So, every scene was tough, Mike. That's
Was there a particular scene that was on the cutting room floor that felt like a baby you had to let go of?
Yeah, I mean, there was some more to like. We did cut a full scene out. I was really funny. It just didn't really add much. And there was in the opening sequence when they're getting in the car on the way to the fight, like there's some really funny dialogue that we loved, that we had written for years and years, and we just thought was so funny. Ultimately, it just slowed the pace down. So, that was tough. My editor, Brent McReynolds, like, he was like, listen, I know this is your baby, but it doesn't mean it needs to be in the movie. And that's the hardest thing, I think, is cutting scenes. But it's all for the better of the film. Got to keep it tight.
Yeah. If you were the dean of a school as rambunctious as this one, how do you think you'd handle the students?
Dang. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough job to have.
That's a real tough job. It's a really tough job. I think, it's funny because when I was in high school, my freshman year, we had this dean that was like a hulking figure. Like, he was huge. There's all these rumors about him. You never knew his origin. It was like he was an old NFL player, he was an old NBA player. He was Pamela Anderson's bodyguard. Like, there was all these rumors about him. But he was such an physically intimidating person that I remember I was the first person to get a jug in my grade, which, like I said, I was a pretty good kid. A jug is a detention, justice under God. Mm-hmm. And I was falsely accused of something, for the record. And I got a detention, and this guy sat me down. He's like, I'm 14 years old, and these guys are massive. He goes, oh, so you're the troublemaker, huh? You're the guy that I'm going to have to be looking out. We're going to become best friends, huh? I'm going to see you in it. And he intimidated me so much that I don't think I got in trouble again the rest of the year. Wow. So I think physical intimidation definitely goes a long way. It's probably not what a school would suggest, but I think it definitely is true.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't see that putting it on there, but it's kind of like one of those unwritten things. Like, we got to get a tough looking dean,
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah. You got to have like Ernie Hudson from Oz kind of like level.
Seriously. No, that's yeah. I mean, that's the truth. Yeah, that'll do wonders for you.
So, was college a little tamer than high school for you then? Like, once you kind of got out of that? Oh, yeah. It's usually the other way around.
So it was the other way around. And I went to art school. So I went to Columbia College in Chicago.
Yeah. There's
no party. I mean, when I was there, I'm sure kids always find a way, but there was very minimal partying. And, being in like such a big city as an 18-year-old, like, it's not like you can go to bars. Like, maybe if you find a fake ID, sure. But like those college towns that are just literally thousands and thousands and thousands of young kids, they all have fraternities and all this stuff. There's, it's endless opportunities. in Chicago, you know, it was really hard. Like you really couldn't party. Maybe in the dorms a little bit, but you know, yeah, I was pretty tame. I was really focused on my craft. It's so funny because like in high school, I was like a C and D student. I failed a few classes, and then I got to film school and I was an A student. So yeah, I don't know. I was just really dedicated to it, and I loved it. So wasn't
I
worried.
had the same experience at Columbia.
Did you go there?
Yeah, I went there. Yeah, and I also noticed it said in your. I have this saved for the fun questions later, but I have a PA Transformers related question.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because I actually worked on that way back as a PA too.
No way.
Yeah. I still remember the first day. It was like a weird omen. Like when we had our first meeting that day, like someone collapsed of like a heat stroke during the
Sure.
meeting. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is a good sign. And they were like telling us,
Yeah, we probably met before then.
yeah, we probably have.
I mean, that shoot started very large. Like there was like 100 PAs, and like I don't know how long you stayed on, but there was like 30 by the end of it.
Yeah, they went through a lot of people and a
Yeah.
lot of explosions, and I couldn't believe how light like the building is. Like after like there was like a huge like chunk of a building next to me, and it was like you could just push the whole thing with your finger.
Yeah, it was all foam. It was all styrofoam.
Yeah,
The best. I mean, that was the most inspirational thing ever. And this is one of my favorite film school moments. I'm so glad you went to Columbia. I think that's so cool. One of my favorite film school moments was I was in directing one, and everyone in there is like, you know, they're like big Wes Anderson films. At the time, I'd never seen one, and everyone's like really artsy and like, you know, they're really passionate about their stuff. And the teacher was going around the table and he's like, if you know, what kind of director do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who makes movies and they're just in theaters and they're making a bunch of money and it's all action, blah blah blah, or do you want to be someone who's making art? They might not see it, but there's meaning behind it, blah blah blah. And everyone went across the whole table, you know, the whole classroom, and everyone's like, I want to make art, I want to make films, I want to make films. And then they get to me, I'm the last guy. He goes, Leo, what about you? I'm like, guys, I just stepped off of a $300 million budget film. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do that. I want to make a movie. And he's just like shook his head at me. He was so disappointed. But you know, that's sad. Like once you start, I was like 18. I was like, dude, this is wild. And it was so inspiring. So if I could do anything on that scale at any point in my life, that'd be an absolute dream.
Yeah, I just keep remembering they kept yelling "fire in the hole" like every few seconds.
I had nightmares for like a year after like waking up like trying to lock down the street. I'm like, it's like 3 a.m.
You can hear like the radio, like even when you're like out in public. They're like, "What's your 20?" Like, what?
PTSD. But that's what you know. I think I'm so grateful for that because you know how hard it was to do that job, and you know, coming onto a set as a director, it's like, you know how hard everyone below you is working, even at the very bottom of the totem pole. Every job is so difficult. So I'm able to use those experiences like, hey, yeah, sure, maybe someone screwed up, but like it's tough, man. Everyone deserves some slack.
Oh yeah. Well, especially on a production that big, and you know when you're there for that many hours, people are gonna make mistakes, and that's only natural.
You know what's crazy is that I met my producer Brent Madison, who produced the Crusades. We met on a lockup on Transformers 3.
Wow. Yeah.
We got stuck together for 15 hours, and like by the end of the day, we're like, hey, I guess we're friends now. Like,
yeah. It's funny how that works. I met one of my friends who's like a collaborator on stuff. He's like a location scout for a bunch of movies, and we met on Transformers. And yeah,
that's so funny. Even our one of our I think it was our UPM or was our production crew, John Phillips. He was one of the PAs too. And I was like, John, we worked on Transformers 10 years ago together. That was a great set. So that was Chicago just started booming for production.
Yeah. Michael Bay might be kind of like a crazy person, but he does get the job done pretty quickly.
No one can shoot a better action sequence than that guy.
No one can have that much information while not breaking the fourth or but not breaking the 180 rule the way he does.
I literally just told someone at dinner an hour ago, I'm like, my goal is to have a sponsored shoe in my next film. Like Michael Bay had like his custom Nikes made that said like Bayham on it. I'm like, I need like this.
Yeah. So were the students based on your friends in that movie, or if so, who got on your nerves the most?
You know, I think it's funny. It's like, sure, I think if anyone from my high school watches this film, they'll be like, oh, that feels like this person, that feels like that person. It was all, I think everyone in this film is inspired by people I encounters with, and they're definitely like exaggerated versions. I wouldn't say they're based on anyone, but they're definitely inspired by. And like I said, like Leo in the film is exactly how I felt in high school, but I might not necessarily have gone through what this character goes through, but the way he thinks and stuff is a lot how I thought. Same for Sean and Jack. But yeah, everyone is definitely inspired by someone that we've encountered along our way for sure.
Yeah. And how do you think the staff did handling their students at this school?
In real life?
Or just like in context of the film?
Oh, in the film, this school, in the film, I'm gonna be very clear, the fictional movie, it's a no holds barred. Like, this is every man for himself in this school. But in real life, no, they got a great hold on the students there.
Yeah. So this film feels like a mixture between Animal House and Brick. What were your influences for this film?
Man, I think like I love John Hughes. So like I love John Hughes. I always like think those are a classic, and like they're really classy the way he shoots them. He walks like a line where like it's never over the top, like explicit by any means. So I wanted to keep it classy. And obviously I love Superbad, and that movie is extremely raunchy. And so I'm like, okay, how do we find like a nice middle ground? And also like my guilty pleasure, and this is ridiculous to say this, but like I did so much research to figure out the look of like this film that I've seen like every episode of Riverdale. Okay. And Riverdale, like it's shot so dramatic. So I'm like, you know what? Let's like take like the idea of like how Riverdale shoots their show. Let's take Superbad and like let's try to combine these two and like still try to keep it somewhat classy like John Hughes. And that's kind of like how the Crusades is born.
So oh, you know what? I didn't notice he actually got Mike Starr in the film, and I remember him from Dumb and Dumber and stuff like that. How did you manage to get him on board?
Mike is the best, dude. He is such a veteran, and like when you hear of like veteran, like old Hollywood, it's Mike Starr. This guy came on set. It was like one of the hardest days we had. It was a nighttime shoot. We had no time left. Like it was the sun is rising, and we have no other time to shoot this scene. And it's towards the end of the film, and I'm like, all right, this is Mike's first day. We haven't even officially met in person yet. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna get this done. He literally gets in, goes, nails his lines to every single mark, every single cue, everything to the T, turns to me after 3 takes. He goes, it's not gonna get any better than that. I'm like, you're amazing. Cut, we're done. We've got our day. Like if you threw like maybe someone who's newer into the game, into that scene, like we wouldn't have made our day. But that dude who's been around the block has been on 200 projects. The guy's been in Goodfellas, right? Like, Come on, Scorsese directed him. He's letting me direct him. But the girl who plays Caitlin in the film, Hope Katraki, she knew Mike. She worked on him on a film. She loves Mike, and she's a close friend with him. And we were talking, and she's like, I think Mike would be really interested in this if you want to do it. So I jumped on the phone with Mike, and we had like a 2-hour phone call, and he was on, and he just brings that extra level of like, hey, this is an indie film. This is a lot of these actors' first time doing a movie, and like you bring in a dude like him and Nick Turturro to like really ground this thing, to make it like you got a couple seasoned dudes in there to balance it all out. It was a big deal for me.
Yeah. So it said in your bio that you shot the Crusades around as a television show. Would that still be an option of something you would do? And if it was, how would the show be different from the movie?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Me, Sean, and Jack have been talking about this for years. It was always supposed to be a TV show, and apparently Hollywood doesn't want to give people multi-million dollar budgets who've never done a TV show before. I get it; it makes sense. So we were able to get it made as a movie. And we basically took like different episodes and got the best of it in there to make it an hour and a half. But we talk about it on a weekly basis. We're like, we really want to make it a series. I think that we just have so much more story to tell. And it would totally be in the same vein. I would shoot it just as cinematic, just as dramatic. And man, I think there's so much potential. I just want to cover all the seasons because like being in the Midwest, the elements of like it being scalding hot and having no air conditioning, or it being like the dead of winter, and like it's just you're just trying to like go out that weekend and like there's like 3 feet of snow and you literally just like walking everywhere. There's so many obstacles that come with just living in the Midwest, and I'm like, I want a full season to be able to flesh out these characters, tell these ridiculous stories, because we have stories that are endless. Like we just we didn't scratch the surface on this. So yeah, I would love to do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I noticed in the filming credits for the movie, this was filmed in Niles, Glenview, and Chicago. What inspired you to shoot your film in the Chicagoland area?
So, you know, I grew up Northwest Side, and my high school was in Niles, and you know, I just think that like I couldn't relate. I couldn't really relate to a lot of the films in high school. Like when I was watching them, you know, there's all these really ridiculous, lavish mansion parties and like pool, oceanfront houses, and it's just not relatable to the average person. And I just wanted to make a film that my community can relate to. I think, you know, I just made it from my perspective of like, this is how I remember high school. And like, there was no one that was like really rich, and there was no one that was necessarily like, you know, like everyone was pretty much in the middle of the road. Everyone was just average people. And so, you know, we did do a spec pilot in Los Angeles at an all boys school, and it looked great, but I just really wanted it to be as authentic as possible to my story. And that was hard, you know. Like I said, being an indie film, it's like, how do you want to spend your money? Do you want to spend your money by flying the entire cast in and putting everyone up for a month? You know, like that's a massive expense that doesn't make sense when everyone lives in Los Angeles. But luckily, like, you know, we made it happen. My producer Brent's amazing. Like my high school gave me the green light, and like that was the biggest deal in the world to me, because, you know, having their support and the support of the community is awesome. And if they didn't support it, I think I would be devastated. So like from Jump Street to have my back meant the world, and it was full steam ahead after that.
Oh man! So do you have any future projects in the works?
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff I'm trying to get going. Obviously, like I said, TV show is something we think about all the time, and I think we'll see how the next few months play out with the film. If it's well received, I think it's something we'll start pitching. We have another film called 10 Cent Beer Night. It's like inspired by true events of the Cleveland Indians and Texas Rangers riot in the 70s, and it's a wild ride. You know, we're out for development right now. We'll see what happens. I'm really optimistic about it, but it's the Crusades on steroids. It's just as comedic, it's just as raunchy, it's just as gritty. And yeah, I think it's the natural evolution. It's like, give me a little bit bigger of a budget and I'll show you an even more wild. So,
oh my God. And where and when can we watch the Crusades when it comes out?
July 7th. It'll be in a handful of theaters across the country, and you can find it on Xfinity, Vudu, Apple, and Amazon. And yeah, my goal is to like really get this thing like spread. We have a really loyal fan base right now that really seems to be really excited about it, and I'm so grateful for them. But like, you know, let's do the impossible here. Let's get this thing blown up, and I think we can do it. I think this film hasn't been made in a while, and I think it's going to be a really special treat for a lot of people.
Right, absolutely. So before I take off, I have some random rapid fire fun questions for you to answer. Yeah, so we got that. So, movie you dislike the most?
Dang, dislike the most. Gosh, dang. I'm going to say Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was just like, I don't know why I just watched that.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of actors doing their reels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your favorite movie?
Halloween, John Carpenter.
Oh, that's a good choice. That's my favorite Halloween film, actually.
Best one.
Yeah, and that was that. And then did you see Halloween? Halloween Ends.
I've seen them all. Yeah, I've seen them all.
Yeah. Oh, you even saw the one where he's like, the season of the witch is great, and then the one where you find out that he's actually possessed by like a cult.
No spoilers, Mike.
It's okay. It actually saves
30 years old, this movie. Seen them all, love them all. I love them all in their own ways, but my favorite is hands down the original.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Guilty pleasure movie. Gosh dang. I told you Riverdale is my favorite guilty pleasure show. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay, okay. So your favorite movie food to eat outside of popcorn?
Do slushies count?
Yeah, those count.
Slushy.
Yeah. Here was the Transformers question I was going to ask. I worked as a PA on it as well. Did they tell you not to look into Michael Bay's eyes?
You know, that was a rumor. I don't know if production told me that, but that was definitely a rumor. I think it was spread enough that it was very believable.
Yeah, I can believe that. I just remember where he walked around. I was just like, and just put my head down.
I remember my first day ever, they asked me to deliver his lunch. Like they were like, hey, someone on the radio was like, walks up to me like, hey, you got to bring this to set. And I literally had to physically bring it to him. And I was like, it was within like the first 6 hours ever of the production. And I'm like freaking out. Very nice. He was very nice to me.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. He was probably hungry. That's why. You went to Columbia College. Did you do their semester in LA program?
I didn't. I actually dropped out after my second year to pursue it, but my producer Brent Madison did the semester in LA, and he never left. He stayed there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Did you do
Raleigh
it?
Studios. Yeah, I did it. A long time ago in like 2012. I did it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
It
we were
was
at Columbia around the same time. Then I was there. My freshman year was 2010.
Oh wow, yeah. I went in around like let's see, I think around 2010 or so. Yeah, 2010, 2011, 2010 to like 2012, and then okay. So last question, and this is kind of a basic one. If you weren't making movies, what would you be doing?
Interesting. It's a great question. I don't know, man. I can't really picture anything else. I'm sure. I always wanted to be an architect before making movies, and my guidance counselor was like, "Leo, you literally failed math. Like, it's not possible." I'm like, "Yeah, I really don't want to do math ever again." So I think I was supposed to be an architect, and then luckily I found movies because I don't know, I'd be probably a pretty bad architect.
Yeah, math isn't my strong suit either.
Yeah.
But no, thank you so much, Leo, for coming on and doing this. Leo Milano, the director of the Crusades. It will be on July 7th. Where can we find it again?
Select theaters. It'll be at the Pickwick in Park Ridge, if you're familiar with that. And Apple, Amazon, Xfinity, Vudu, and a few other cities across the country. That it'll be listed at the Crusades Film on Instagram and crusadesfilm.com.
All right, so guys, check out the Crusades Film and the crusadesfilm.com. Leo Milano, thank you so much for coming on. If you guys liked what you saw today, feel free to subscribe to YPA Reviews. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Mike.